What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Corbin, the Serpent Tongue Skipwith.
And Ren, the Berserker Marabou.
And
this
is
SAGAS.
SAGAS. Hey, that was pretty close.
That was the best one yet.
We're gonna get there. Next episode, we'll get it. All right.
Right.
Do you want to introduce the album since it's your?
Yeah, I'll introduce the album, and as I'm doing so, I will tell about our sponsor for today. Is the awesome people at the Ulster Meat Co, who are one of only two meaderies in Ireland, and they just so happen to be friends and allies of mine, and they make the best meat in the world. End of story. Check them out. In particular, there's my favorite is the King of the North. As you can see it, Corbin, nobody else can. But check it out on Instagram and Facebook and their website and stuff. So that's today's sponsor. So kick into it. This album is one of my favorites by In Flames, and these guys are absolute legends and pioneers of the genre. They basically forefronted, whatever way you want to put it, the genre from like the early 90s. The genre being melodic death metal, and as they progressed, their albums they shifted a little bit, and this one is a prime example of that. I think it was the album before this where they really started finding their new sound. They kind of call it like alternative metal, but it's still a lot of melodic death metal stuff in it. So yeah, today's album, brother, is the 2006 Come Clarity album, the 8th album by In Flames.
Nice. You know, it's interesting. So a few things I want to point out. First of all, I finally found out where I recognize the single "Take This Life" from. It's on Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Guitar Hero 3, and I was like, that's how. Because I used to play that game a lot as a kid. But the other point I want to bring up, it's really fascinating to me because I was looking at the information about the album, and it says that it ranked #1 on both the Swedish and Finnish charts, which I find really interesting because I actually Googled the discographies of a bunch of big bands, especially in the Finnish Swedish area, like Arch Enemy, Him, Hypo Negative, the 69 Eyes, Children of Bodom. None of those artists released an album in 2006.
Wow.
So they literally had that year for the taking, which I think is pretty fascinating.
That's really interesting, dude. I didn't notice that. And it was a really big year for metal, and especially these boys, obviously. But it was that year that there was the Unholy Alliance tour. Was Lamb of God. Obviously, Slayer was the main boys in that. Children of Bodom that you were talking about, and In Flames. And it was absolutely amazing. The tour was huge, and the year that they released this album, it's pretty epic. Like to have done this Unholy Alliance tour and release and promote that album. But I was lucky. I got to see them in the Point in Dublin on that tour. And it's the 3 Arena now, but the Point Dublin, back in them days, and they had the Flames, the whole lot. It was absolutely amazing. But yeah, what a big year! I mean, it's funny. It was their first album, as far as I know, that actually hit #1 in Sweden. Yeah, so it could have been because there wasn't that many albums out that year, but it is an absolute gem of an album. It was released on Nuclear Blast. But they also they done an awful lot of work on Territory and stuff. They worked with Ferret Music, who helped them push it to the north of America. Ferret Music is ran by one of my favorite, the singer of one of my favorite bands, Nora. They're called, which we must do one of their albums. They're a phenomenal band. But he had this label himself, which ended up kind of amalgamating or forming their own alliance. Let's say that's the word of the day, alliance. With Sony, so it really helped them push that, and they had Nuclear Blast as well, and a company I don't really know much about, but Toys Factory was another one. So they really pushed the distribution around on this album in particular. So yeah, No, it was wicked. Really, really clever timing, and you know, it might have been just accidental timing, but we'll say it was perfect timing and perfect strategy.
Yeah, I found it, you know, because for me personally, and this is just my interpretation. To me, this album in a lot of areas sounded really similar, especially considering 2006. To me, this just reminds me so strongly of like more metalcore, like, you know, alternative metal. Like, I know it says it in the Wikipedia, and to me, for some reason, this is, and I know there are obviously melodic death metal elements, but to me, when I was listening to this album, I couldn't help but think of, you know, the metalcore alternative metal, like screamo era of the mid to late 2000s, with bands like Of Mice and Men, Fallen in Reverse being a bit more of an extreme example, like, because they're a lot softer. But like, yeah, for some reason that was the vibe I was getting. And, you know, because to me, when I think of melodic death metal, I think of like Arch Enemy, I think of like Archetype, and to me, this kind of style wasn't quite as heavy as those guys, or like Children of Bodom. But still, yeah, there are obviously elements of the death metal, but I just felt more of a metalcore vibe.
Yeah, well, that's what it was. It was they got a lot of backlash and stuff over their shift in genre. It was the album before this that really took it out. I can't remember the name, but now off the top. Oh yeah, Soundtrack to Your Escape. So that was 2004. That was when they really kind of started shifting, but that's when it really started happening for them, because it was like, I think that as far as I heard, it was like 100,000 copies were sold in the USA, and there was like high charts in the singles for that album as well. And actually, it was around that time they did their first Australian tour.
Oh,
so wow. Yeah, so they started venturing out and I was gonna say feeling up the other countries, but yeah, feeling out the other countries. Yeah, so it was it was a real important transition kind of time, that 4-year period for the boys, but it took them to where they are, because I suppose, you know, mainstream would be an overstatement, but in metal terms it really was, because I think by 2008 they reached 2 million album sales. So, you know, that shift from the metalcore to alternative metal, I think, was a clever move. Like, I think they've done a good job with that. Like,
you know, it's really interesting. Like, when I was listening to the album, and another reason why I just instantly, you know, felt that metalcore, dare I say, screamo inspiration, because because there's a lot of clean vocals mixed in with the harsh vocals, and to me, like, I know I just mentioned these before, but like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the band, but there's an American band of Mice and Men. And like the original, I'm not sure if he's still the singer, because I haven't really heard the band in years, but the singer then, Austin, he used to do a lot of clean vocals and heavy vocals, and he did it so beautifully in harmony. And I hear the same vibe here, and it's really impressive. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people take that for granted when a singer can do both screaming and clean. It's like trivia. Like, it's really hard to do.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And Andres, the singer, he's really unappreciated in the sense that obviously he's a megastar and he has adoring fans all over the world, but I don't think he gets the full credit for his ability. I was watching him recording. It was Come Clarity they were recording, and you just see him in studio, and you know, it's interesting because 2006 was like an interesting time for recording, because it was just starting to shift into that more computerized kind of world in recording, but they stuck to keeping it as organic as possible. And you know, when it came to his vocal approach, he would go in and he'd layer his vocals the way I would do myself. It's my preferred way to do it as well. Instead of like you computerizing it and then panning and stuff, he just went for it. And when you see him behind the mic in the studio, he's giving it socks, and you can really hear the ferociousness. His voice is ferocious. But as far as I know, he was in a band before called Tranquility or something. And there was a couple of boys in that they were involved in the beginning of In Flames. Andres wasn't one of the founding members as far as I'm aware, but as soon as he came in on the fray, the vocals, it just brought him to the band to another level. It's very unique, like, and he has a really cool, strong stage presence too. So he brought a lot, plus he has kick-ass dreads. Well, he had back in them days, so he just looked super cool, done the job. And lyrically, back as far as I know, in the earlier days, it was more melodic, methodical, kind of I wouldn't say they're Swedish, so you wouldn't say like Norse per se, but they were kind of on that kind of fantasy world of mythology stuff. But then, as soon as they got into the more straight up albums, the more mainstream ones that we're discussing, he then started writing a bit more introspectively and personal sort of stuff, which really showed in his performance, you know, really brought out that energy in him, like, you know. So top marks to him for that.
Yeah, and you know, listen to this album is like, for me personally, when I'm getting ready and studying an album for this podcast, I like to spend the last few days of the week leading up to Wednesday to just soak it all in and write notes, because that's just how my brain works. And I was listening to the songs, and you know, I can't help but have a few criticisms. Like, you know, for example, the first song I want to talk about is Dead End, which has that the female vocals. To me, look, I listened to it a few times, and to me, it just sounds like, although it's a great performance, obviously, it's just, to me, if I start paying attention, like, you know, like if I start nitpicking, to me, the vocal kind of sounds off to me. Not like in key, not in tone, but like it sounds like almost as if it was implanted into the song without structuring the instrumentals around it properly for it to actually fit in the song. Like it sounds on top of the song, or it doesn't sound with the song, and it kind of sticks out to me when I'm listening to it. It's obviously good singing, but I'm just like, yeah, it sounds like it's layered on top, not with.
Yeah, it's interesting because the vocalist is Lisa Miskowski, I think her name is. She's actually like a famous Swedish rock singer. They say rock singer, but to me it's more pop rock, more of a pop star with a bit of edge. But her vocals never normally sound like they did on this track in particular. Whatever way they mix this, or I think it's great now. I always enjoyed that. Back in the early days when the album came out, I wasn't so keen on it then. I think just as the years have gone on, I've grown into the more melodic side of things, and I appreciate it more now than I did when I was listening to it first back in the early 2000s. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I think it's an interesting pick that they had her singing on it, and they didn't make it a single, because I think she was fairly big at the time. She's had there was a song that she had on the Mirror's Edge. You know that video game? Speaking about video games, Still Alive, the song was called, and it was on the Mirror's Edge, which I think was near enough around the same time. So she was like a figure to have as like a guest vocalist to promote it that way, but they didn't. They just left it as an album track, which I thought was pretty cool. But the track itself is pretty sick though. You know, I really like. It's a driving track, you know. I really liked it. But speaking of, what did you see the videos for the two singles, Take This Life and Come Clarity?
I forgot to check it out. No.
Yeah, right. So just speaking about driving, sorry, bro. There's a song. Come Clarity is like the main single. Obviously, the album's Come Clarity, but it's that really cool desert. They're driving like a Cadillac or something. Well, the singer is Andres is driving through a desert, and they were just in a desert, rocking out. It's just super cool, like, you know. So, just speaking of driving, two different contexts of driving, but driving all the time. And then they just had a really cool, very early 2000 vibe video of like they're in a city and there's lights and there's like it's being filmed from like a helicopter, and before drones are about. So it was pretty cool, pretty cool. So that's the two singles anyway. But did you did you ever listen to the what's the album called? My favorite album. It was like the third album before this, but I can't even remember the name of it now. But that was a lot more melodic album. Reroute to something or another. Reroute. Anyway, that was my favorite In Flames album up to that point, and I can't even remember the name of it. But when this one came out, it really did throw out a completely different side of them. You know, they recorded it themselves, but it was recorded in, I think it was their own studio. I think they used to work in a studio called Dugout Studio, and I don't know whether they took it over or whatever. But it's so funny because they used to just sit around all day playing pinball and Wii, and like Guitar Hero with their own game on it and stuff. And they just had like this own. They were at home, you know, and they had a guy mastering and a guy mixing, and they had a guy tracking. But they sat down and they recorded everything themselves, which was really cool. Who was it that Oh, what do you think of the artwork? Actually, the artwork's pretty sick too, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. That also reminds me, like, that's just another piece of the puzzle that just screams mid to late 2000s to me. That real, like, sorrowful, here's my heart, I'm a skeleton, I'm just a vessel. Like, I don't know. It reminds me of artwork you'd see from like bands like Bring Me the Horizon, Bullet for My Valentine. It just reminds you of like that kind of style, which I think is pretty sick. But yeah, that's the vibe I got from the album.
Yeah, I think his name was Derek. Derek, I can't remember now, but he made artwork for Sepultura and a few other big names at the time. So he would have been like Derek Hess. He was Converge as well, which is interesting. Converge are another one of those extreme metal bands, and they've always got really iconic artwork. But it was a really cool choice, I think, because like you say, the artwork, the guy's holding his hand or holding his heart in his hand, and it's real, like, you know, deep rooted stuff. But I love that. But I got as well. I'll never forget this day. I went in and I really wanted this album, and I went into a shop in a little town called Portlaoise in Ireland, and I saw this. I was looking for the disc, and then I saw this like really cool. It's in the car. I was meant to bring it in to show you while we were chatting here, dude. But it was like a double disc, like proper back in them days. You know, you get the double disc. It was like a lovely folded out, and there was a DVD with it, and the DVD had them playing, you know, the entire album but in studio, which was really cool. Like, obviously DVDs are obsolete now, but you know, back in them days, you're like, oh, score DVD with this, man, this is awesome. And there was a really cool printout came of the artwork. It was essentially just the artwork, but it was like a poster, and it came with it. The only difference was the logo wasn't at the top, it was down the bottom. But it was a really cool, nice feature, and it was white and it was real vibrant. And for like such a heavy, iconic band to have it white, I don't know, it just stood out for me. It was like really special to go that route, like. But this was my favorite lineup of this band. I think they really, this was their you know, top of the range sort of vibe. You know, the guitarist Jesper, he's like the founding member, but unfortunately he's not in the band anymore because he had trouble with, you know, alcohol, and he says he didn't like the direction of the band, the way they were going. I think he left in like 2010, but he says that's that. But the boys were like, nah, he just couldn't tour anymore, and it was a pity now, because like these five together were unreal. But you know, I don't even know when you started listening or heard about In Flames, bro, but you know, I don't know if you remember just seeing Bjorn, the guitar player, back in the day. I remember seeing him, and he has this like tattoo all down his right arm, and it's like I don't know, lion or not leopard, lion or tiger. Stripes. It's so cool, and he just has this really cool iconic look, you know. And when I remember seeing him, I wasn't even paying attention. I just saw this guy on MTV2 or something with his badass full arm tattoo of like lion print, and he had like this gold, it was like a black Epiphone Les Paul shaped guitar with gold hardware, and it was just sick. I was just like, that guy is super. I think that was the first time I ever was interested in tattoos, you know, because a lot of the rock stars I was listening to before that weren't really tattoo orientated, and I was like, oh, I want to be that. I want that tattoo. I want a guitar like that. And then he turns out he ends up making a signature guitar of that. He had like a Gibson. I think it's a Gibson Studio black with the gold hardware. So he ended up getting Gibson approached him and asked him to do like a signature model, and he ended up costing too much, so fans wouldn't be able to afford it. And I really like this. This is really cool, like, because he was like, I'm gonna go with Epiphone, who make more affordable guitars but are still kick-ass. Like, they're still really good instruments. And I just remember being a young fella, and I was like, I need one of those guitars. I never got one, but you know, I got one similar, but I did play one, and it's absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So maybe one day I might. But yeah, I think it's what kind of inspired my my signature Cassidy's guitar, because I had a Fender, kind of an Fender equivalent to his Gibson, and I wanted to make a signature model, but not a Fender, obviously. So we took all the same style. We took the weight and the components and everything, tried to replicate that in our own way, and that's what he done with this. And I love it. Like, do you ever see how low they play their guitars as well?
Yeah.
They're like, it's like proper. Like, I remember when I was a young fella and I was playing, that's what you go for, trying to play real low. These boys are, you know, close to their 50s now, and they're still up there with their guitars down by their knees, you know, keeping it real, like proper sick, cool dudes. Like, but yeah, no, the lineup of this album was just perfect. I think they really done a great job on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, whenever I think of low playing guitar, I always think of like Korn or Metallica. You know, the bass player, it's always called the Korn, always down here.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You know, so one thing I have to bring up. So I think this stood out to me the most when listening to the album again is so in the album you have the title track "Come Clarity," followed by the song "Vacuum." That's the thing. Now, to me, I found it so. The song "Come Clarity" is such a melodic song. It's got so much emotional weight to it. You know, it's really cool, really melodic. But to me, I found it so weird that in the transition from "Come Clarity" to "Vacuum," there was no outro. Like, there was no kind of melodic outro to ease its way into "Vacuum." To me, because of how powerful "Come Clarity" was, I felt like there should have been some kind of beautiful exit to "Vacuum." And then what's ironic, I found out, is that "Vacuum," the outro for "Vacuum," has a melodic ending. I'm like, that should have been in "Come Clarity." Why did you put it at "Vacuum"? It just, to me, it was reversed. It should have been at the end of "Come Clarity." I don't know. To me, the ending of "Come Clarity" and the start of "Vacuum," there should have been something there to ease the song into it, instead of just your trademark heavy playing right away. It's like, wait, you can't go from such a heavily emotional track to not, like, I don't know. The fact that there was no bridge there kind of just aggravated my OCD a bit.
I know, I get that. I totally get that, because, like, you know, it's such like a heart-ripping sort of song, "Come Clarity." It really is. That song, from everything, like the acoustic guitar at the start is just, it's a really, the tone of the acoustic is one of my favorite sounding acoustic guitars. Whatever way they got that sound, it's just epic, and it sits on top of this fat bass line, like really chunky. that's the one thing Peter, the bassist, does. The whole way through every no matter what part it is. Like we were talking about David Ellefson doing something similar, but he just like keeping it solid the whole time, all the time. It's like overdriven, distorted bass, and it's just amazing. But he does a really cool, low dynamic rundown on this acoustic intro, and it locks in solid with the drums. That's one thing I will say. Their rhythm section is, light years ahead of many bands, and that's what makes them what they are. The guitar work Bjorn is an amazing guitar player, and they write incredible riffs. Jesper wrote amazing riffs over the years, which is what they're kind of missing now. But they never really over pushed themselves as lead guitar players. There is some really beautiful dual guitar stuff on this album, but it's just right. It's like I prefer that, than over embellished solos that you can't really pick out unless you're a trained guitar player yourself, and they just hit the melody just right, and that's what I really like, and that's where the melodic death metal vibe comes in. But Come Clarity, it's like a really lovely end. It just fades out, and then all of a sudden, boom, vacuum. It's like you're sucked in through a vacuum. Maybe it was a clever idea, but yeah, no, I do it myself on my own records and stuff. I like to have something to just ease you back into it, But there was a couple of choices of placement on the album that, like say the last track, for instance, versus Therminus, I just wasn't digging that as a last track. It has that long build up, and then there's very little awesomeness, and then it's just a little small drag out. So there was a few things that you'd be a little bit, all right lads, you were playing too much pinball at the time, or playing with your Guitar Hero game. But no, all jokes aside, this is a phenomenal album, and the proof is in the pudding in a way, because they won. They were up for 4 Grammys. Did you know that, bro?
Oh,
now not Grammys as in that's like the Swedish Grammys. They called Grammys or something. It's the equivalent. So they were up for 4 Grammys, and they won. I think they won 2 or 3 Grammys overall. But this one as well got a Metal Hammer Award in 2008 for Best International Band, which is way better than any Grammy as far as I'm concerned. Metal Hammer Award would be the top of the range. But yeah, so I don't know. They done well, and there's a lot of people say that this was their last beast of an album, that things started swaying there after that. But I don't know. Well, for me, the just their sound that they have created and pioneered from the very beginning, and they've slowly just turned it and created even another sort of genre and sound, and that Swedish metallic sounding, it's just like a juggernaut, isn't it though? When they lock in, it's just like a juggernaut is the only way I can describe it. Like, it's real beastie, it's real like metallic sounding, and it's made to sit in like just like a funnel of power, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so they were all born in Gothenburg as well, which is really interesting. They've had how many members as well, like 13 members or something. But this was, to me, their best lineup. But it's kind of cool because they get old members and bring them back in. Like at the moment, they have a guitarist that was on the first couple of albums, and he's back in now, and they're all solid and that. So yeah, no, overall, I think this album is a masterpiece, really. For the time that it was as well. They recorded in the Dugout studio in Uppsala, like I said. But then the bass, was it the bass and drums, I think, were recorded in another place in Gothenburg. in their hometown, which is kind of cool. It's like two of the boys are like, nah, we don't want to travel. We're just gonna stay at home and record. I could totally see us doing something like that, bro. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about all the? They've supported some serious bands over the years. Like, I think in Australia they might have supported Judas Priest and Motley Crue and Motorhead, all bands you wouldn't even expect, you know, that kind of way, which is pretty cool. Like, so and I think that year, just leading up to this album, they played Ozfest, and you know, they have played amazing big shows like I think they played main stage of Bloodstock that year, and I've seen them playing Vacuum and everything. Sure, listen, this band have done it all over the years. Like, they've 13 albums at the minute, is it? Is that many they have?
Yeah, I'm not really, you know, I only started really studying them for this podcast. I wasn't really too familiar with them until then, but besides that one song. But
yeah, no, I get you, man. Well, it's 48 minutes and 6 seconds of pure magic. It's you know, we have our section at the end of the show, and I found it very difficult to pick a favorite. Let's put it that way, which doesn't happen that often for me. Like, usually there is one that doesn't sit too well for me, but no, this album is absolute magic, I have to say. Come Clarity is one of those iconic songs. Take This Life, you know, it's video game worthy. To put it that way, you know.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. So, all right, for me, I think when it comes to our famous game, Devil's Advocate, I'm going to insert a bell sound. Inserting bell sound in Medic. But for me, as far as the best song goes, I think for me, it's easy. Take This Life. I mean, I'm probably biased because I played it so much in Guitar Hero. Like, I remember it very well, and so like as you said, it's game worthy. Literally, it's a banging track. The clean style vocals on the chorus are amazing. They sync well with the heaviness of the heavy instrumentation and the brutality. So really well done there. And for me, playing Devil's Advocate, the worst track for me, and this is really just positioning, and you kind of hit the nail on the head already about it, but it's the last track. For me, it's not a bad track. It's just, I wish they just put it at the start of the album as an intro and then Take This Life. That would be an epic continuation. But for me, there wasn't enough melodic vibes towards the last thing of the album to kind of compensate for that ambient instrumental track. Whatever they were trying to accomplish, there should have been the few tracks leading up to the final track. There should have been some kind of build-up of something to make sense for it. But to me, I didn't feel it was there. And if they had put that at the start of the album, then I'll be choosing a different bad track. But that's my picks.
Yeah. I know, that's fair enough, dude. I'm halfway with you on this one. For me, Leeches would probably, I mean, it's really hard. In fairness, I have a couple of notes written down. I have Leeches, Scream, Come Clarity, Reflect the Storm, Dead End. They're all really good tracks. I love them all. Obviously, Take This Life, you know, is the obvious choice because it's such an epic song. But when you listen to it on the album, it's so cool that they put that awesome song at the start. It's almost the opposite of who were we chatting about last week? Yeah, and they had their epic single at the end of the album, which was really interesting, really brave. So these guys took the straight up approach of just throwing it down straight in off the bat. But then Leeches comes in. It's the second track on the album. And there is one of my favorite things in the world is to add disco beats to metal. It's like the coolest thing, right? And I think this track, I don't know if there's many in Take This Life, I could be wrong, but I think the introduction to their synths and the programming comes in really strong in Leeches. Leeches has this What would you say? It's like a, I don't know. I don't do programming or synths and stuff like so that well. But they're like, that's my equivalent of it. So anyway, but while that's happening, there's like this wicked disco beat, and the chunkiest riff ever. It's perfect. It shouldn't work, but it's absolutely beautiful. Like, I love it. And then the vocals, Andre's vocals, are just sick on that. With the leeches, he really gutter rolls it, and that's another thing we never really hit on. His vocals, I said at the start, but he can reach some serious notes, man. Really unique sounding tone as well. You'd know straight away. That's not even just him, but you would know that this is an In Flames song. You know, it's just they have their own pure, unique sound, even if they deviate on their style. But this one is a prime example of that, because they throw in whatever they want to throw in. If they're in the, you know, like, if they, one of them, the boys are like, let's throw a disco beat in here and let's just groove this, and then sledgehammer it for the rest of the song. It's amazing. Their approach to songwriting is a gift. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on my Devil's Advocate least favorite track, simply for the same reasons, man. It should have been either an intro song, or a snippet of it should have been maybe used as an intro to a song. It's like it's I think it's like 3.5 minutes long or something like that, and it's just a little bit dragged. You know, I kind of, when I get to the normally when I listen to that album, I get to that bit and I skip right back to the start. You know, and you know, I get it. It's cool to try new things and not box yourselves in. But I think this time they should have just closed the lid of the box, because Vacuum is Vacuum that is just before that, right? No, I'm wrong. It's Crawling Through Knives, and that's a beast of a tune, absolute beast of a tune. I love that song. That could have been one of my favorites as well. Yeah, if they'd ended that album with that, they would have been on a pure winner. But then again, you know, who am I to say? The Grammys gave them an award for it, so did Metal Hammer. But yeah. I'm sure maybe some of them would agree on this as well. Like, I think they could have phoned it in, you know, and kept that for even a Ghost track. If that was a Ghost track, probably would have been nice.
Yeah.
You know? But who am I to say? So that's that album for us this week, lads. I mean, it's an epic album. I highly recommend it. It was the same. 2006 was a good year for me, man. I was I was just finished college or something, and I got my first Fender, you know. I got this album, so yeah, it's nice to revisit that. I had so many nostalgic moments listening to this album. It was pretty sweet.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if you want to tell the audience what you've got planned this week and anything you want to say.
Yeah, well, as we've you mentioned at the start of the podcast, of our lovely sponsors, Ulster Mead Co. My band, Ren Marabou and the Berserkers, are now official ambassadors with these amazing people and their amazing brand. And they have, you can't see it, I said it at the start, but one of their meads in particular is called the King of the North. And you can kind of tell where the kind of the direction of this company's going. They're going in that Viking Norse. They have another bottle called Ragnar. They're just super cool. The two guys are legends. There's two boys running the company out here in Donegal, and they're the only other company that has a meadery out here. The other company is down the bottom of the country, and these boys are up the top of the country. So up the north of the country, so King of the North. But yeah, it's all gonna get very exciting. We have I don't know if I've mentioned this on anything at the moment, but we're going to make a video for a new single that I'm bringing out next month. I don't want to say too much, but it's the track is called Let's Drink Mead. So we are obviously working with these boys to make this video, and it's gonna be special. I think we're all going to dress up as Vikings, drink mead, and sing and the whole lot. So that's exciting. That's exciting. It's the first time I got to mention. I've been working, chatting, working out deals with these boys for a while. So it's really exciting. Corbin, my man, I promise I will get a bottle over to you at some stage.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Cool. So for me, my vacation ends tomorrow. So so I'll be back doing reviews. I've already backed up like 5 people asking for reviews. And actually I forgot to mention there's a guy, an Australian band. I forgot the band name at this time, but he said that he'd be open to featuring on our podcast.
Oh,
so that's cool. That's something.
Nice.
So yeah, like probably sometime in the future, I'll choose to review his album, and then he can come on the podcast and give his 2 cents on his own album, which would be cool. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, I'll be doing reviews probably as of tomorrow, getting back into things. And also today, as I promised this specific page last week that I would, I want to shout out the Vault of Ambience. They're a YouTube channel that uploads study music, like real relaxing Tavern, Celtic instrumentals, ambience. It's perfect for sleeping, studying, or relaxation. I personally, whenever I'm doing reviews, I normally put on ambient music to help me think. And it has no words and it's just relaxing. And these guys are definitely top of my list now. And yeah, if you're into Celtic or Tavern sounds or those real cool ASMR vibes, then go check them out. The Vault of Ambience on YouTube, and they have probably hundreds of different videos, and you can choose your pick. And besides that, yeah, next week's album will be by the band Sun O, and it'll be Monoliths and Dimensions, which is drone metal. Excited.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one, man. But yeah, so you're probably listening to it on it, but if you're not and you hear this earlier on the week, you can check us out on Inner Demon Media, Inner Demon Radio on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, isn't it?
Yeah.
3 p.m. Eastern, and yeah, on the Delinquent Ball show. So check it out, and in the meantime, yeah, check out the beautiful sounds that Corbin was describing. You know, the Ulster Meat Co., Red Marabou and the Berserkers, and SAGAS Metal Podcast. Woo!
Same time, same place, or something.
Or something. Peace, everybody.